Nothing amazing happens here. Everything is ordinary. What happens when your comfortable life is suddenly uprooted with wacky, lowbrow antics? How do you cope with the isolation from your peers, and the one person you did connect with is no longer around? How do you cope with loneliness? Welcome to part 2 of my analytical series of Fooly Cooly, where in this segment we'll be looking at Mamimi. Mamimi is an odd character. From the very first scene in the series, we see that she exists in her own little world. She explains to Naota how to swing a bat, telling him, "He who conquers the left side conquers the world," without realizing that she has her hands in the wrong position for the bat to begin with. It's no secret that she idolizes Naota's older brother, and in this absence it's Naota, or Takun as she calls him, that fills the gap. Aside from this, what do we know about Mamimi? We know that she likes to take pictures. We know that she is often ostracized by her peers, as evidenced from this scene here.
What's she doing?
I don't know. I saw some girls bullying her yesterday.
What uniform is that?
Shinden High School?
She's in high school?
At that age, it's really pathetic.
We both looked into the abyss. But when it looked back at us, you blinked.
Although, through the series, we get these little hints about her that tell us that she is generally disliked by society, yet we hardly see any actual resentment from Mamimi, except for a few instances that flare up. She exists in her own little world. She sees robots that spout from Naota's head as gods, although, when you really think about it, she's not too far off considering where they came from. She seems to be dealing with her less-than-ideal life through escapism, where one seeks distraction and relief from an unpleasant situation through a land of fancy and kind of shaping the world around them. Mamimi hangs around Naota and acts this way to remind herself of his older brother, and despite him being gone, she feels content with him being there for her. She worships Kanti as a god of the black flame, oddly enough hanging around the old burned schoolhouse where Mamimi went to school and where she first met the older brother. In episode 5, when she finally calls out to the older brother despite Naota being there for her, ready to save the day, she would rather he come and save her. This idolization is very prevalent in the show, but it may not be entirely apparent to her. A scene that I keep coming back to is the bridge scene where she says this.
My brother, how much do you like him?
Watermelon. Or like a panda with a mean face. Or like sandals with pressure points drawn on them. Or the smell of a blackboard eraser. Or a Sunday morning where you wake up and it's raining. Well, I like him more than hard bread.
It took me a few times to finally get this scene down, and I think, based on what we have to go from and Mamimi and what we will see from her, I think she sees the older brother as her savior but doesn't fully realize her own obsession until she's in dire trouble. In this scene, Naota asks some very reasonable questions and asks, hasn't he even contacted you? How much do you like him? What follows is a series of odd images. A panda with a mean face, sandals with pressure points drawn on them, the smell of a blackboard eraser, a Sunday morning where you wake up and it's raining. These things seem unpleasant to most people, but something tells me that they bring comfort to her. She's a character who seems attracted to the non-conventional things, so it would make sense as to why she would like these kinds of things. In a way, Mamimi almost seems lost in what she really wants, which is why she leaves town in the end. She sees Naota as a phase in her life, and while she needs him to be around in the beginning, it becomes clear to us that she can exist without Naota, because anything can be her Takun. We see this in the final episode where Takun is the small monster that eats the phones that eventually turns into the giant monster at the end. While Naota has to drink his sour drinks and swing his bat, Mamimi is a character with no clear goals or ambitions. She escapes from her trauma and isolation by having her head in the clouds, and yet it sets her apart. She goes off the beaten path to change the world around her to fit her needs as someone whose concerns begin and end with themselves. Which is not to say that she's selfish, but I doubt the concerns of others regularly come up in her thoughts. While Naota is a subject to change, Mamimi stays the same and travels to where she doesn't need to grow. Or maybe what she's looking for lies elsewhere. We are only left wondering, but after all is said and done, nothing amazing really happens here. Everything is ordinary. Well, thank you again. This was another great part in this analytical series. I really enjoy making these, and I hope that you guys enjoy listening to them. I'll be finishing up this series with part 3, where we finally look at the hyperactive Space Patrol officer, Haruko, and hopefully bring this whole series to an end. I'll be working on that whenever I can, but if you like this video, be sure to give it a like, and if you really like me, or just want to hear more of my voice and see more of my videos, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.